Catfruits are a resource that is needed to acquire the true forms of all the gacha units along with a few other units. They are a resource that takes a long time to accumulate and there is a lot of true forms. So in this video, I'm going to be going through each rare gacha unit in order to describe the boost that they get while true forming them and how well it improves them. I will also have a priority ranking in the end, but I will include their ranking while discussing a unit as well. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Anyways, we have quite a few units to get through. The main draw from going to Masai to Jianshi is the decrease in price and the guaranteed survivability. Having the ability to always survive hit, especially on a meat shield, is why Jianshi is a good unit to unlock. However, you won't need it in most situations where regular meat shield is better. The best place to use Jianshi is on 4-star stages, as there is a lack of bulk of meat shields in 4-star stages, or stages with either high damaging enemies or enemy spam stages where stopping the flow of enemies is important. In spam stages, money isn't as big of an issue as you're already killing a ton of enemies. The main thing you get out of true forming Real Cat is by going from an 11-second cooldown to a 4.5-second cooldown. This allows chill along with an increase in attack power to deal with aliens a lot more easily. However, the main issue is that it still costs a ton to send out, so you should either wait until you unlock talents that get the cost reduction talent or avoid sending it every time it gets recharged. Two things that change from Paris to Cyborg are an increase in attack power and an immunity to weaken. This boost in attack power makes a good spammable attacker into an even better attacker, but the bigger change is the weaken immunity. This allows your Cyborg stack to stay powerful. This also allows her to handle enemies such as Calamari, Mr. Angel, and especially Winged Piggy, as she is one of the most difficult enemies one will face in Stories of Legend depending on what Ubers they have. Catasaurus gaining a health increase improves their survivability, which is always nice. The attack boost is bigger than you would think, as this allows Catasaurus to deal 60% more damage with a crit. This could wear down the two big bad metals of Sir Metal Seal and Super Metal Hippo nicely, but what about that range? Well, this is the main reason that Catasaurus should be one of the first true forms you get. It goes from 150 to 180 range. This might not sound a lot, but this range difference means it gets outranged by the enemies mentioned earlier to outranging them. This difference alone is way too big to ignore, and it shows up when you put it into practice. The extra 2% increase in a crit chance is also nice to help minimize the RNG ever so slightly. Despite it being a massive anti-red tank gaining area attack, the lack of an attack or range boost holds it way back. Their talents aren't the best either. If you struggle with stalling red enemies in 4-star stages, then pick it up, but otherwise I'd say hold back until you get some more important true forms. Their range, health, and knockback chance increase is nice to have, as it gives them a lot more survivability, but the main draw is their talents. The main talent is the ability to be immune to waves, acting as a pseudo-wave shield in some stages. This wave immunity is only specific for Berserkori and Toucan, but it works great against both due to outranging them. A wave immune Catly is one of the best units to bring to Ogre Island thanks to being able to bully Berserkori while also outranging the Manic Islands, allowing for some small chip damage. Don't bother true forming them unless you already basically have every other rare true form and are a completionist. Gomen is only decent when you get talents thanks to being a zombie killer with somewhat respectable DPS when their talents are maxed out, but the amount you need to invest to make a unit go from unusable to somewhat usable on zombie stages is too much for what you could get out of some other units. Speaking of which, Sanzo gained so many qualities that make them a viable true form to acquire. Their increased range allows them to act as a crowd controller against several floating enemies, most notably the very hard pushing Bun Bun variants. The main change, however, is them getting area attack, which turns what would be a decent crowd controller to one of the best in their field. Not to mention their angel talent targets, which basically invalidates some enemies such as Borophim. This should be one of the first rares to true form, and their angel targets is one of the first talents you should unlock. They also have weakened talents, which can help even more with crowd controlling. While they can be useful sometimes, Doctor doesn't really have a place in the anti-floating meta since knockback isn't too important against floating enemies specifically. It doesn't help that Sanzo is just that good of an anti-floating crowd controller that basically makes the other rare crowd controllers harder to justify using. Unlike Sanzo, Necrodancer didn't get area attack when true forming. This one simple detail makes Necrodancer way lower on the priority list because despite Sanzo having 50 less range, that area attack matters way too much. An increase to their health along with a boost to her range makes her more competent at outranging red enemies. The extra second of slow also means you can get more mileage out of stacking them as she has a somewhat high attack rate. This allows you to get an extra chance to reset that slow timer. She can also work as a zombie slower with her talents as she has sufficient range to outrange almost every single zombie in the game. She works great as a zombie slower with another unit further down this list. The increase in stats isn't all that impressive, especially with the lack of a cost reduction. However, you can turn Qatar into a pretty useful anti-zombie with talents thanks to most zombie enemies being melee attackers and the fact that Qatar can outrange Cadaver Bear. Granted, this isn't the best thing in the world, but it can be useful in some situations. Tired of dealing with boars? Well, this is your perfect answer, as they can easily shred through any boar they come across. However, due to the oversaturation of anti-red units in the game, it's harder to justify getting Elemental Duelist, but their high attack rate and spammability can be used effectively. For example, it can help deal with red enemies that end up in Courier's blind spot. Their angel talents aren't too useful simply due to being outranged by every angel outside of the Divine Cyclone, Gabriel, and Saint Dober, but Saint Dober outranges thanks to Omni Strike. Rodeo Cat's increase in range is nice, and the other stat boost can help it deal a little bit of extra damage or tank that one extra hit. The extra slow time is useful as well. You could pair Rodeo with Bomber Cap to help keep enemies slowed for a good distance in case you lose your bombers. Late game is where you can get a lot of benefits thanks to their relic talent, since by the time you get to an Ancient Curse, Rodeo will probably be one of your only relic crowd controllers and is super useful on Primal Cyclone. Most angels are either fast or have a high range, meaning that knockback isn't too useful. Granted, you could pair it with their surge talents to increase your chances of knocking back angels, but you could easily use your NP in other places unless angels are that big of a struggle. Same issue with Acrobat, but on a larger scale. Every relevant black enemy outside of Bum Bum Black, Toucan, Tacky, Lenore, and Dark Otter all have a speed of 20 or more, 2 of those being high range enemies and 1 is a waiver. Robocat only really works against Dark Otter and Bum Bum Black on a decent scale, since every other black enemy could just get right back to attacking your units. Even then, it's more useful to just take these 2 on more offensively. Also to note that most black enemies have a naturally high knockback count. The only place where you can get mileage out of Robocat is in Wrath of Black Cyclone, where you're only allowed to use rare units. A simple stat increase like this makes a good unit into one of the most powerful meat shields in the game. It gets an effective 20 to 25,000 more HP against angel enemies, which is huge. Artist Cat already has the stats to be a good tanker and 4-star meat shield, but those extra boosts to his HP make him wonderful. The attack boost, while small, gives it some extra DPS. If you want a more detailed explanation on why Ramen Cat is so good, then check out this video here that explains everything you need to know about Ramen. Commando Cat goes from a pretty bad unit to one of the best rare stackers in the game because of a few but significant changes. She gains a 50% boost in her attack power, which allows her to punch things harder. Her increase in range is also big. In terms of specifically floating enemies, she can now outrange all the Bun Bun variants. As discussed several times, being good against Bun Bun variants usually means that you can get a lot done. The speed boost is nice as it allows her to get to the front lines ever so slightly faster. All of these stats would probably make her a high priority Catfruit evolution if it weren't for one change. Her gaining area attack allows her to become such a powerful generalist and one of the best stackers in the game. She can deal with multiple threats while standing from a safe distance and not get killed easily as she doesn't rush in. Psycho Cat is interesting as it's the only rare true form to mention an increase in attack speed. This means you have a lot more opportunities to slow aliens down. The extra speed and health means that they can possibly take an extra hit and get to the front lines faster. They also have anti-zombie talents, and as mentioned in the Qatar section, are super useful on a ranged unit like Psycho Cat. They also have a slightly higher range than Cadaver Bear, but due to the nature of Cadaver Bear being such a strong pusher, it is risky to use Psycho Cat. Their weakened talents can also come in handy sometimes. Such as the ways of the world, one simple change can make all the difference. For Thaumaturge, that's going from a 50% chance to weaken to a guaranteed chance to weaken. Her high range makes her a reliable weaker on Peon light stages such as Deathhawk. Her main gift when it comes to talents is her wave immunity, however. This allows her to shut down the majority of wave enemies as most wave enemies have low range. Even mid-range waivers like Hermit Cat are outranged by Thaumaturge, who you can use to weaken Hermit Cat to give your rushers like Fishman an extra chance to land a hit. Weed Whacker gains a much needed buff to their health, allowing them to actually tank a hit or two from zombie enemies. The increase of freeze going from 2 to 4 seconds is very big on a unit with an attack rate as high as theirs. Their increase in range also gives them extra survivability against most zombie enemies they come across. Despite doubling in health and now being able to outrange Lord Gravy, the main issue with Ectoweight is a lack of increase to their knockback chance. Their talents aren't too good either, so you should wait to get this true form. Even though it doesn't get any increase to their health, it does gain an attack boost, and thanks to their strong ability, they can deal a lot more damage against aliens. To help with being able to stack them, they have a cost reduction of 10%, now costing 270 cents instead of 300 cents. While it might not sound big at first, this does matter a lot in the long run. The addition of slow and weakened immunity also helps out with their matchup against several alien enemies from Queen Bee, Calamari, Scissorex, and Lemur. Its speed boost isn't too big, but it can be useful in allowing Catalite to get to the front lines just a little bit faster. Belly Dancer is the only rare cat who requires an epic Catfruit seed. Epic seeds are a fruit you can get by either completing level 18 of a Colossus Gauntlet, a chance of getting one on the 5th, 10th, 5th, and the 20th floor of the Infernal Tower, or by completing Growing Epic, which is unlocked after an Ancient Curse. Keep in mind that these are either RNG-based acquisitions or late game stages, and thus why it has its own priority placement. The actual stat buffs Belly Dancer gets aren't all that crazy, but her main trait is her anti-Aku talent. Since most forms of crowd control don't work against most Aku enemies thanks to their shield, Dodge becomes one of the best crowd control abilities against Aku enemies. Also, since Akus are a relatively new trait, there aren't many non-Uber specialists, so having a unit that can act as a decent shield can be super useful. Like Ramen, Shigan is an amazing tank against a specific trait. In Shigan's case, this is for zombie enemies. Shigan receives a nice booster to their health and gains slow immunity. While there are only 2 zombies who can slow, one of those just so happens to be Dabu the Dead, who is a very beefy and hard-hitting boss. While Sifu is decent against Dabu due to being able to take a hit, Shigan is a straight up upgrade as not only can he take 2 hits from Dabu, he can also walk towards Dabu while all the other units are slowed. You might ask, why is Shigan under high and not top like Ramen was? The main difference between these two is that Ramen has better general stats that allow him to not only be used as a great anti-angel tank, but a very powerful general shield for 4-star stages, whereas Shigan is somewhat more restricted because they're longer recharged and higher cost. So, that is every single rare gacha unit with the true form. Before I get to the final ranking, I just want to state how many resources it will take to get all these true forms. To get every single rare true form, you will need 38 green seeds, 38 purple seeds, 42 red seeds, 40 blue seeds, 40 yellow seeds, 15 green fruit, 9 purple fruit, 12 red fruit, 8 blue fruit, 4 yellow fruit, and 1 epic seed. Now to the final ranking. For cats that you should hold off true forming until the end include Goman, Robocat, Acrobat, Cattar, Doctor, Maximum the Fighter, Necrodancer, and Ectoweight. The units that you should true form if you're struggling with a specific trait or have extra resources include Elemental Duelist, Rodeo, Chianchi, Corrupted Psychocat, Dread Pirate Catly, Chill, Enchantress, and Weed Whacker. The units that could be on your initial hit list and a high priority include Cyborg, Thaumaturge, Catalite, and Shigan. Finally, the true forms you should immediately go for include Ramen, Cameraman, Sanzo, and Catasaurus. I hope this guide on rare cat fruit true forming was useful as a way to help you figure out what you should get first with your cat fruits. If you thought it was helpful, then make sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, why not hit that subscribe button as it helps me out in the long run. For those who have true formed their rares, who was the first one that you true formed? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day.